Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hotline League. It's going to be a really fun one because we're now officially in a post-MSI, pre-LCS summer time. And when we have episodes like this, what we like to do is open the lines and we get some of the most fascinating conversations going. You know, instead of talking about this latest thing or that latest thing, we get to just have a really fun episode, really great, bringing you all of you in, and it's going to be a banger. We do have a little bit of post-MSI stuff to talk about and some interesting stuff happening over at FlyQuest with Jensen. We'll be diving into that in this week's episode. But first, let me introduce my co-host for the evening. It's none other than Cubby. Cubby, how's it going?
I'm great. I got to celebrate someone's birthday yesterday, which is quite fun.
Oh,
Happy
yeah,
birthday,
yeah.
Travis. Yeah, gotta go right in the, sucking up to the boss. Anyway, it was actually a good time. There was you had a good group of people that come out and just like to chit chat and enjoy company. And we went to a couple spots and hopefully you had fun, but I had a good time.
Yeah, no, I had a great time yesterday. I drafted with a sort of the OG Magic draft crew that I'd had for a long time, and then afterwards we all went over to one of my favorite bars and hung out, and then we even did a bit of a bar crawl because that place closed and we went to the next place. So
It was a Sunday.
yes, yeah, I streamed for about an hour at the end of the end. So thanks to everybody who showed up to watch that or to be a participant in it, I guess I should say. But yeah, it was a great time, and thank you to everybody for the birthday wishes. I had folks on Discord say a bunch of really nice things and got a couple nice messages on Instagram and elsewhere. And somebody sent a donation. They were like, "Oh, I was looking at your Amazon wish list, just decided to do this," and so I woke up this morning to a nice chunk of cash that somebody had sent my way, which is very cool. So I just again thank you to everybody for the gifts, the cool stuff. The support and encouragement and all that stuff. So had a great time. I also was up in Vancouver and Seattle last week and saw a bunch of great people and played some games with folks too. So yeah, it's just been a really good week, and now we've got a nice little chill session here for this week's episode and for this week as I figure out some content stuff to get done. So and hopefully some good news coming on the sponsor front too. So I appreciate everybody who's been supporting us while we've been going through a dry spell, but I think we've got something exciting to announce around LCS time. Anyway, Cubby, besides my birthday stuff, what else have you been up to?
We had guests over. So if anyone is a fan of Challengers League, we had Beatdown Boulevard, a coworker and co-caster of mine. We were hosting him and another Canadian. And quite frankly, I'm gassed. Like our last week was pretty much filled with like going out to dinner, going out to karaoke's, and then people coming back to our place, and then MSI would be on, and I was on the MSI schedule. And then this weekend, I was up early to co-stream CLAW for both days, as that I got co-streaming rights for that, and we're now in the top 4. So that's been my week. I'm gassed. But yeah, it's been quite fun, and now we got some content planned on my own for the next couple of weeks, but it's pretty much 2 weeks up until I do CLAW finals in Boise. And then after that, it should be close to the start of the league. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Seeing a couple drop frames right now, so I don't know if anybody's having issues, but please let us know in the chat if for some reason something weird is going on. But I don't think there should be. It looks like the internet and everything's fine. My computer's fine, so we'll figure that out. But glad to hear that you've been having a good time. And yeah, I know it's not too long before LCS starts. So I guess I think in the past week, Riot officially announced it's the 15th of June. So
okay, great. I was leading up to that, then I had to be vague. But it's the 15th of June. Yeah,
yes.
That's fantastic.
They said everything else to come soon. So still no news on format. Still no news on what's going on. I'm sure there's going to be some Valorant overlapping again in the summer, and so we'll see, if we're back in prison or how that goes. But I think this is fun. So as I discussed at the beginning of this episode, this is one of our open lines nights where we, it's Cubby and I. We don't have a guest. It's just having cool, casual conversations with all of you. We like to do these every now and then. And so if you have a take that is normally not related to, the Oh, it looks like YouTube is having some sort of connection issue or something. I'm not sure. It looks like it's on YouTube's side because Twitch is fine. I'm sorry. But if you have a take that is normally not related to the news of the week, or some sort of broader conversation you want to have about the state of the league, no pun intended, you can definitely. This is the episode for you. So we'd love to hear from you. Cubby, how do people call in?
Yeah, if you guys want to hop in on the show, give your take, head to Travis's Discord, which can be found at discord.gg/Travis. Also, command Discord in either chat. We'll pull up the link for you. Join, say yes to the rules. You don't have to read them even, if we really need callers today. I'm kidding. After that, just at me, at Cubby, in the chat. You'll be pleb topics or subtopics, depending on how cool you are. And if the take's good, we'll throw you in waiting room, and we'll go from there. I already have 3 takes drawn, but down to draw some more later on, as we're definitely going to be running longer than that. So, yeah, feel free to hop on in, give your take. I got a couple MSI things queued up, but as Travis said, anything that you guys want to bring up, if we think it's interesting, we'll pull it for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but before we get into calls, I don't know. Do we have any general MSI stuff, or can we chat a little bit about MSI beforehand?
Yeah. I mean, congrats to Gen G. Like there are some memes being thrown around that Dord and Peanut were the problem, and I gotta say, I feel like they were the problem. Because usually I just expected Peanut to choke and not look like the way he did domestically, and guess what? They have Canyon now, and Canyon is just banger. So, yeah, I think that overall, like, the result of the tournament is what I was expecting. I had BLG beating Gen G, but then once I saw Gen G win, I thought that Gen G would be pretty sound. Like, I thought the one solution that BLG would have against them in the rematch is Lucian Nami, and once that didn't work out, then like Camille was also kind of figured out by then. I thought it was pretty Gen G favored, and that's kind of how the series went. So it was a good series, though, and I think a lot of people are calling this the best league tournament they've ever seen, which makes me sad because I still felt like that was far from the case, even if it was a great tournament.
Why?
I just think they got the format right, and they're getting a lot of perks.
Yeah, why do you feel like it's not the case? Like, what holds it back?
I mean, going in, like, this tournament to me went to expectations. And for me, there are other tournaments that were way better that subverted expectations. Like I was saying on both Here in the Jungle, like my 2 podcasts, that, man, I think Chovy's the best player. Like, everyone agreed Chovy's the best player in the world. I thought Bim was second best. I thought 3 of the 4 teams coming from the East could be really competitive. And if you look at the bracket, that's exactly what happened. Besides the fact that G2 challenged T1, who weren't in their best form. TL took a game off T1, who weren't in their best form. PSG was a little bit of a surprise before they got absolutely pub stomped by G2. And so, like, for me, nothing really happened out of expectation except for top, like, dropping, FlyQuest dropping, and that's about it. Like, I actually, like, if you would have told me it was Gen G BLG final, I'd have been like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? That's probably it. Like, oh, wow, T1's not in final. Like, I wonder if they got beat by both.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are overreacting. I think that the reason that people are calling it the best tournament is because they just got a good format. Like, this format's good. Like, I think that, like, for me, like, there really wasn't that much of a surprise outside this tournament, besides the fact that the format's good. So, yeah, congrats to Riot on, after 14 years finding, or however many years they've had this tournament, finding a good format for it.
All it took was double elimination.
All it took was double them.
Who would have thought? Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah, I am trying to think of, like, I took some notes here, because I was thinking about this the other day on the plane ride back from Canada and after the event was done. This was the first event outside of the COVID years where we were all kind of in on it, where I didn't attend in person. And it was fascinating for me to experience what it's like for a North American fan, being in this time zone and dealing with all this stuff. And, like, it is so unsurprising to me that this event in particular, I feel like, does not get a lot of attention from North American fans, because it's just impossibly hard to, like, follow, because it is happening at, if you're on the West Coast, 2 a.m. at night, 1 a.m. at night. if you were on the East Coast, like 4 or 5. And I get that this should not be some brilliant revelation to me, because obviously this is the way that international events have been forever. But it was just so different being like, okay, I really want to watch this match. I really want to watch this match. Okay, I have a meeting tomorrow at like 11 a.m. You know,
Yeah.
how much am I like screwing my sleep schedule for this? And what it does, it gave me a level of sympathy for the North American fan who wants to watch these international events, which are consistently timed at just impossible eras of the evening for folks to be able to tune in. And so I don't know. I just want to shout out everybody who does take the time to figure out how to manage all this stuff, because it is really hard to avoid spoilers in the morning when you wake up. I tried to do that a couple times and then would just get slammed with it somewhere. It's harder for me, I think, because I like social media requires me to be on it sometimes for the job stuff. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to sit one out and to experience it from the other angle, and it made me a little sad, I think, for the LCS fan who wants to be able to tune in for a lot of the stuff, because I know that this is how it goes so often, you know.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I mean, I had fun staying up for the tournament. I think one of the more fun parts for me is that I was watching in calls with like some coaches and players. So that was fun, like tossing around ideas, or like I was sitting like educated calls, which I appreciate. Um and so like for me that made the tournament a little bit more fun, because like we were able to talk about the game a lot. And there were like really good teams competing, of course. So like it was still positives, but man, I woke up at a reasonable time today and I was so happy to be off of MSI schedule. Like
yeah,
I didn't stream today. I took a break. Like I'm gonna get up at a early time tomorrow because I got to record the jungle tomorrow morning, and I'm excited to just be on a human schedule again. Like I was seriously so gassed like from actually staying up for the schedule. So I know that I'm very much in the minority, and I consider this my job to cover everything I can. But yeah, it's really tough. Like I've also been in the spot where I worked an office job and would avoid Twitter all day to like try and make sure I can go home and watch the games on my own accord. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just, again, I want to give a shout out to everybody, because it was tough, and I think very
Yeah.
educational for me. And I think that as I get back to covering these events in person, it's something I'm going to carry with me. So that was just something I was really reflecting on over the past weekend. So all right, shall we get into our first call of the evening?
Yeah, let's do it. We got an MSI take. Let's go.
Awesome. While Cubby's off to grab them, thank you to Ambient Night, Donata 389, Kanoke for 50 months. Thank you, Kanoke. Wow. It's so crazy whenever I see folks with the subs up that long. 50 months. DJ8 Ninja, thank you for the Prime. And then over on YouTube, we got Ethereal coming in, joining as a new member. So thank you for joining up. We should have a fun show here. We have, for the first time on the show in a while, we have Space Pope. Space Pope, where are you calling from?
Hey, Travis. I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan, actually.
Detroit, Michigan. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, I want to have a conversation about kind of G2's masterclass in drafting and how teams could improve in that regard. Like how the meta is often defined by what the best teams are playing, not necessarily what the best champs are, and how teams should focus on players' champ pools and matchups more personal to them, right? You could use Mickey X, or if you want an NA player, APA are different examples of this, right?
Yeah. So go ahead and explain. For those that, I don't know, don't usually follow the draft phase as much, you want to give an explanation on why you think they have this drafting masterclass situation?
Yeah, I've got their games up on Game of Legends right now. I want to find a specific one. So let's go with their 3-0 series versus Top Esports. I can't post links in your chat, but you can find it on GOL. In game one versus Top Esports, right, Nautilus is very clearly the premier support kind of in the meta currently, barring specific matchups like you want Renata with Kalista and things like that at times. And what they do here is they actually took Leona on 3 and they pinched Braum Renata on 4-5 bans on red side, which basically gives Top Esports a free Nautilus. And everybody has kind of just cognitively forgotten about Leona and how it's like a winning skill matchup into Nautilus, right? And the first thing you see is just a bot lane 2v2 double kill down there. right, in that game. And that's just one cherry-picked example kind of out of the whole tournament. Even in the games they lost versus T1, I thought they had some really exceptional and compelling drafts. I know everyone could easily praise their Ivern double ADC drafts and things like this. They're playing Orianna Yasuo at times. I mean, they're really, really, really digging deep. They're flexing Poppy to multiple roles, Jax to multiple roles. It's just really, really incredible to see that a team is willing to just stand their own ground and be themselves. Because the best teams, like teams who win, and this is not to discredit Gen G or T1 or BLG, who I thought played great. But those teams are often dictating the meta, right? The orange support, nobody's seen that all year, and now all of a sudden we're playing it at MSI with Senna. The best teams, like I said, are often what air quotes define kind of the meta on what champs are good, because teams just watch the better teams and go, well, that must be the best, rather than really digging deep and kind of finding who they are as a team and like what their personality is. And G2 has stayed true to their guns for years, and here they are doing it again, really punching deep at MSI. It was fantastic to watch.
Yeah. Cubby, what do you make of this? Because I mean, it's fun. I'll say really quickly that I think it's been really neat to see this team and this org somehow maintain this like reputation over so many years. Because in League, it is very rare that you have an organization or a team that has been able to maintain an identity or some sort of trait about themselves for so long, and with so many roster turnover, with I don't know, so many different changes and patches and all that stuff. So it's really fun that we've been able to see this.
I will say that G2 has also been blessed because they went from Perks to Caps, and like Perks in that era, like Caps was the person that really rose to the occasion to beat Perks, because Perks was the dominant mid once he started. And then from there, they teamed up, they went on their runs, and then they maintained Caps. And I think that's a big advantage. Like, everyone will point to Caps the player, but also that's like, look at T1 with Faker, right? Like, that's a very consistent piece where you know that guy's a winner. And then you can put people around him, and you can train the people around you to be winners like you are too. I feel like Caps has earned that title as well. It hasn't just been them. Like, I think they've added to their staff. A lot of people, including the players themselves, credited Elfari for helping out with Broken Boy's laning phase, which was quite good. Duffman was someone that C9 dropped and went over to G2, and Duffman continues to win. People were praising his scouting. I think it's something where like they've built a winning culture, and I think that bleeds over. And you have, TL saying that we want to be the G2 of NA and be a team that can always win and have the gap be so big that it feels like a one-team region. Like, that's ultimately a compliment to G2. When it comes to their drafts, one of the big things that we talked about a lot coming into these events, if you are a Western team, aka coming in likely at a disadvantage, is you have to find ways to find edge. And it's really tough to do that. All the time I talk about knowledge gap, like in the game. Like, if you are a Yorick one trick, you are going to know your Yorick matchups better than your opponent. There's value to having a lot of time on champs, especially time on things that people are not as familiar with. This is one of the reasons why you'll see a lot of players default to comfort, because they know what they're going to go up against and how to play it out. And another reason why you get to see things like Lilia Yasuo. It didn't win the game, but everyone can look at that draft and be like, wow, like G2 actually has legitimate angles to play this out. I think Tristana mid was a great read from them. They found a lot of pairings that could go well with Tristana, and it was something where the Eastern teams were playing it as well. Like, Top Esports, their bread and butter was Maokai Tristana. G2 were able to take the Tristana part of that and then add on far more iterations to what Top Esports was able to play, and actually have it be an even more powerful duo for them. And when that happens, a lot of the bans thrown at them were built around taking away that duo, especially in the T1 series. They only got it for one game, where they threw the Ivern pairing in. So I think that, like, that's one specific thing. They're throwing out different bot lanes. I appreciate the Leona take, because Leona, like, can stat check Nautilus early on, and I think that they got the kill because the opponent's Omega trolled, but I mean, that helps. It's a great pairing with Ivern as well, because you have a 5-second Q cooldown. Like, that's your big advantage as Leona in the melees. Yeah, I mean, G2, like, they're willing to play stuff, and they're confident enough their players are good enough to execute it. And then when you have a series where you're playing Poppy support, like, that champion's ridiculously OP, but it wasn't really the jungle flavor because everyone was taking tempo in the jungles. So if you find another slot for it and you're able to play it, get out of the early phase of lane where it's bad with lane swaps, or take Halo Blades and try and win level 1, just the only time you win the lane. G2 had a better grasp on that than other teams. So yeah, I think they do deserve a lot of credit. And one of the reasons that G2 is perceived as a good team is because A, they're very talented, but B, they're also willing to put time into things that other teams are not and trust themselves. And that, I think, is the big takeaway from G2 and like what teams should go after. I think that TL as well deserves some credit there as well, like with the Double Dragon comp. I know it didn't go well on stage, but when they busted it out, it's one of their best domestic comps, and I appreciate the fact they're still able to trust themselves and try and bust it out on the big stage as well.
Do you think that there are any lessons that LCS teams could take away from this, Cubby?
Have faith in your players. Like, play to their strengths, you know? You're going to have some players that are better at some champs than others. Like, APA is a great example. He's not going to be your Silas Akali player. He put a lot of time into trying to pick up Akali specifically. And I think that TL finding a meta where, Zero was out of the meta, and all of a sudden APA was a little bit more comfortable playing a lot of his mid lane champions. That went really well for them. And they were able to build teams around that. Everyone's going to have their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes you don't always have to fit the square into the circle. Like, sometimes you just have to let the square be the square and figure out what to do with that piece. I think it's something where G2, I think uniquely, especially looking back to like how they incorporated Yike in the first place, every comp they built for year 1 was a Yike comp. Everything was built around making sure that Yike knew what he was going to do, and the first few levels, like what invades he could go for, how he could be supported. These guys had the craziest level 1s on the planet just to make sure that Yike got a good start to the game. And now Yike, like for me, he was the liability for them when they went international the last year. He was not this year. He was great. And so it's one where you are able to mold a piece. It's not going to happen right away. So by playing to the rookie's strengths and then making sure that as they learn, and he's able to, actually figure out how to play the game at the highest level, which not every rookie is going to know how to do right off the bat. Make sure he's comfortable, let him evolve as a player, and then you have something that's way more flexible and malleable. I think it's something that G2 handled really well. So I think for me, like those would be the big takeaways from G2 is just, I think they do a great job of incorporating new players into the roster and also letting them be themselves.
Yeah, I also saw some discussion in the chat about G2 picking up Duffman and sort of just the value that a really strong coaching staff can bring to an LCS team. I know that in the past we've talked about NRGs having the coaching change, and maybe it was not as dramatic as we had led on previously, because I think it was only a couple people. I thought that they'd let go more based off of some conversations I had with folks, but I still feel like when you look at what investments what a good investment into coaching staff can make for a team, it's one of those things that from the outside we all have a really hard time evaluating it, right? Like even down to coach of the split and all those awards, it is like really difficult sometimes for us to have an idea of like the ways in which a coaching staff can help prepare a team for success. But whenever you look at the way G2 drafts and you hear a lot of these conversations about Duffman coming in and all these different things, I think it does really help at least make you wonder what the coaching situation could be like in North America if there was a greater focus on this type of stuff. So, yeah.
I look at Spawn and TL. I think Spawn got a lot of deserved credit. Like for me, it was almost too much because people looked at that team and were like, I don't know how this team's as good as they are, so we're just going to credit the coach, right? It's something where, like behind the scenes, I do feel like you have a big impact because you are leading 5 players, and ultimately you have to be good enough where you can set them off on their own when they go into the game, and that's a really tough skill to have. Like if you think about it, like you have a lot of control, but you have no control at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think getting that right and getting, like for me, League's always about the process. Like this game, you have to commit 12 to 14 hours a day playing this game, a game that changes every 3 weeks. Every game is different. What kind of process can you create to make sure that you're able to perform at your highest when it counts? That's something where I think G2 is consistently at the top because they're the ones that answer that question correctly. And they are the ones that perform that day in and day out. I know that Romain was sharing a lot about like their team schedule on top of like obviously the scrim schedule is very public, but just the day-to-day schedule. Like they always get up in the morning, they go for a workout immediately. They take team walks, they eat healthy, and then they go practice, right? There's a routine and a system that's set for these guys that they've found can help them perform at the highest level when it counts. And that's something where I think that ultimately gaming, you don't think of gaming and that being combined. But if you think about performance in that, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so I think teams have struggled to get figure that out as time's gone on. But I do think that there are some people like the ones that have emerged kind of to the top are the ones that are better at that. So I feel like we're getting better at that over time.
What do you think, Space Pope? Have we addressed this?
Yeah, man. I would say like an example of doing it wrong, just for contrast, would be Kareem getting put on Corky jail versus G2. I'll just bring up that same series again. I don't know if people here watch the LPL. I do, but
Yeah, Corky win rate.
That's not a Cream champion. That's just the easiest way to say that. It's the shortest and sweetest way. So that's a really good example of a team doing the exact opposite, right?
Yeah, give him Hui. I do think that
I agree.
the one thing about mid is that like a reason why it always devolves to Corki Azir is because it's really important to have that dash, especially in the highest level games. Like if you lose your flash early, then that can
Yeah,
lead
Ari
to really
is
big things.
unbanned the whole series, by the way.
That is also true. I think Ari, I'd have to go back and look. I know Ari did fall off a little bit for a lot of these teams. I think her early power wasn't quite what teams were looking for compared to some other champs. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, if I can, Travis, before this take is done, I wanna self-report a little bit. So I haven't called in a long time. I've been busy. I'm coaching teams that are or players that are aspiring ACL players, so like Masters, Grandmasters players, stuff like that. And usually our scrims and practices or games fall on Hotline League, but this is our off week and I was able to call. Back in the day when I had a comment about how, quote, we've seen enough of Broken Blade when he was on TSM, getting signed to TSM, that ended up in like a little TSM montage.
Yeah.
I just want to say, BB on G2, you're probably not watching this, man, but I'm proud of you. You kicked ass all tournament. My favorite top laner to watch now.
And I mean, he's been doing it for a while too. I think we talk a lot about it, and to some people, I think maybe too much about bringing players to North America and dropping them to the ecosystem here in the boomerang situation. But I think what we often don't think about is how these players perform afterwards. And I think there's something to be said about, there are a lot of players that come over here and they just end up playing a lot better whenever you put them into a different ecosystem. And so to me, that suggests that the answer is never going to be just bring players over here. It is that we need to work on other things to make the league strong and competitive, because bringing players over here that are going to perform worse than their baseline in other regions is not going to help us beat other regions, So it's funny you mentioned it, because that was also something I was thinking about with the Broken Blade stuff, because Hansama, like a lot of these players have just performed a lot better in other environments. So yeah,
there's plenty of good NA talent out there, guys. Not to do your scouting jobs for you, but A Path Ahead was #1 on my mid lane list the season he got signed to Team Liquid. You've got AD carries like Mobility and Azog out there who are absolutely ready to start in the LCS. There's lots of good players in amateur that teams don't see, that I get to see all the time.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for the call. Anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah, happy birthday, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Catch you next time.
Yeah, and if Kelby's still in the chat, shout out Chainsmokers, unban Tidy Cats. Peace.
Bye. All right. Should we head on to the next caller?
Yeah.
Thank you to 1997 for 3 years, 36 months. I really appreciate it. Gangsta, thank you for the 37 months. Noblet, thank you for the 47. Penguin Buddy, thank you for the 34 months. Thanks everybody for the support. Really do appreciate it. We got our next caller here. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Podras, and I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Padres from Detroit, Michigan. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Hey, so I believe that Riot has catered to team owners far too much with very little in return. and it's time for the LCS to kind of ask for more from the team owners. In the past, as far as I know, at least, the LCS still pays a yearly stipend to help cover player contracts. They've helped kill Tier 2 with Academy. I know Cubby and everyone else is helping bring that up. And allow organizations that do nothing to better themselves to order the league. In return, Riot has gotten a league where a majority of partners don't seem to care, and despite the LCS's attempts to innovate and assist, live patch, challengers, queues, things like that, viewership is dropping. I think in return, the LTS needs to demand more, such as more content on socials, more streaming from players, and other things, I'm sure.
Oh boy. Okay. Cub, you want to lead with this one?
I mean, I think one good example of this is in the break that was in the original LCS schedule. Teams were given the power with Riot resources to do something. And we talked about this a lot with Mark being on. And only FlyQuest did anything. I believe C9 might have did a 1v1 tournament. I know that there were a lot of restrictions about what you could do. Like, you couldn't play another team in the LCS, which I think is dumb. Like, let them stream scrims in the off week if we're not playing for 3 weeks, you know? Why not? Everyone wants to see Scrim stream for whatever godforsaken reason. So, you know, let's let them know how terrible it actually is. And no, but like, I mean, my question to the caller would be, what specifically would you want to see here? You know, like, do you have any ideas of like? I know generally you're like teams need to do more. What do you want to see teams do more, or like what do you want to see them do with the resources they get from Riot?
Yeah, so I know back in the day, so I've been watching since season 3 when the LCS first started up. Back in the day, I know that, at least I believe, that players had stipends in their contract or stipulations in their contract that like, oh, you have to stream X amount of hours.
Yep.
It helped them out, but also it helped us get personalities, right? Like Double Lift, Sneaky, like the OG C9 boys. Those people we got personalities and got attached to, and that helped us with the viewership that we got back in the day. It's why we were back in the Staples Center. It's why we were doing things like that. Now players don't seem to have the incentive to stream. Like if JoJo Pion started streaming, I mean we all know it'd probably pop off and we'd all want to see him do things. So I think they should be requiring these streaming hours from players. I honestly don't even know if Challengers Queue is still a thing, but I thought that that was something that should be mandated. Players had to play X amount of time in to improve as well, because we were having players who were saying that they were at the top not participating.
So,
and I think that
a couple different
team
things here.
owners should.
There's been like a pervasive conversation on Hotline League over the years that players don't stream. And actually, like a decent amount of players do stream now. I think it is more so than in the past.
It's gotten better. Yeah.
And I think part of that has probably been in relation to their realization that the that the LCS is in a rough spot, and maybe that their salaries have decreased or whatever, and so that has incentivized streaming in the same way that, quite frankly, the early days of the LCS very much incentivized streaming at that time as well, because salaries and all that were much lower. I think that it is difficult for Riot to mandate to the teams what their players can and can't do, in terms of like mandating streaming, mandating scrims, mandating all these things. So I don't think that's the right way to do it, but I do think that if you look at Valorant, and this was a conversation I had with Needham back in the end of 2022, they had structured their Valorant partnerships with teams in a way that teams had financial incentives to have brand equity and brand share. And so the idea was that like part of the ways in which you earned your money from Riot was by being a team that was like growing in popularity and showcasing your brand, creating content, all these different things. And I mean, at the time, he basically said that that was something that they really wish that they had done with the LCS. I think they look at the LCS partnerships and they feel a lot of regret around the way that they had rode those. Both, I think, probably in asking for such a heavy fee for teams to come in, but also in basically making it so that the teams had very minimal requirements. I mean, if you look at the way that some of these organizations function in the league, they just don't really put much meaningful effort in. Or in the cases where they are putting effort in, they're not finding success, right? And in one sense, it's almost the same. You know, you'd rather have a team that's trying than a team that's not, but also a team that's been a part of the league for half a decade in some cases and still can't figure out how to like gain fandom is probably not a great partner. So I do think that is where we will see things move in the next year or two in terms of Riot's relationship with the teams. And so I do think that they are going to be holding them to more account. But by and large, I agree with the premise, caller, that like the orgs have not. Look, I might have referenced this in previous episodes, I forget, but like, do people remember the LCS Forever movement? I have a picture somewhere of this. It was where all the team owners, I think except for Echo Fox, before franchising got announced, all got together. And they posted this, I think it was like a public letter or something like that.
Yep.
And, you know, with the hashtag LCS Forever. And there was this movement that was basically like, hey, Riot, you're failing us, the teams, you know. And teams have consistently felt as though they are the ones that are best at being like TOs, at product people, et cetera, and they're like, oh, we know better than you what these fans want. And you saw this in other games like CSGO, et cetera, where the teams really try to create their own leagues and own their own products and stuff. And like ultimately, I feel as though that has not been proven out. I don't feel as though these teams, generally speaking, are great at operating businesses, at building fandom, at taking the investment that they've been given and doing anything with it. And I bring up the LCS Forever thing because if you go back 5, 6, 7 years, the teams had way more weight in the Riot relationship. Maybe not from like a practical standpoint, you know, like Riot could just tell them to fuck off, but from a fandom perspective, people really had a lot of trust in the orgs. There were a lot of fans in them. People, you know, like I thought it was important for franchising to exist because I felt as though like these teams did need to go to the next level. I was very excited by the investments that were coming in because I thought that they could actually do something. And a lot of people were, right? Like I was not alone in this. But now we are in 2024 and you just kind of look around and, you know, I know that Riot will point the fingers at the teams will point the fingers at Riot, but it's hard for me. And I by no means do I feel like Riot has done the best job of creating a compelling product, but like I look at a lot of these teams and I feel as though Riot has done something more meaningful. It feels as though Riot has put in more effort and done more than a lot of these orgs have. And unfortunately, the fear of organizations coming into the LCS and just sitting down and kind of doing jack shit, I think has proved itself out. In some cases, right? Obviously, these orgs all have different levels of commitment. They're all doing different pieces of content and all that stuff. But like, I agree that with the basic premise that the orgs have underperformed as partners in this relationship. Riot probably has not returned to the orgs what they thought they were going to get. You know, the thing that Riot sold all these big companies on in 2017, 2018, I don't think they delivered. And so it's time for the relationship
their
to be
network.
restructured.
Don't they have an internal network still cooking, Travis, where they're going to deliver on everything?
I mean, it was like the BAMTech stuff. It was Riot Esports Network. It was the sales.
Yes,
I think they thought that the sales were going to be much bigger, that they were going to have more sponsors, bigger sponsors. Like it is. I don't want to put it all on the teams because I think the teams were somewhat misled on the opportunity here. But I do feel as though the teams could be doing a lot more than they've done. And just down to the fact that you saw so many teams come in and exit really quickly, you know, like their heart was never in it. So I don't know. I agree with the idea that this all needs to be reset.
I also agree. I think this goes both ways. Like, there is some really low-hanging fruit that Riot could have done to like help the teams. Like, where is the place where I can go on LOL Esports to see all the teams' merch? There's
Sure.
a lot of sports leagues that do this. It's like very basic. Like I can go to Fanatics and get all MLB merch. I can go to my favorite team, get linked to Fanatics, and still find all my team's merch with that filter on. Like that, like this is like so low hanging where they could just go to a like jersey company and be like, all right, we're gonna throw everything up on your website and go from there or our own. Like that's one, right? This is like for me the lowest hanging thing, and I could go on and on and on and on about how Riot could do more to help the teams try and monetize.
Yeah, you say that,
I
but
mean-
here's the thing, Cubby. Okay, fine. You know what?
I'm saying it goes both ways.
We're gonna do
So,
that.
yeah.
We're gonna do the crazy thing. We're gonna talk about traditional sports. Okay, so traditional sports leagues, the teams I feel like the teams on the whole, from what I understand in franchising traditionally, they are like the owners of the league, and so they have like I think they're able to manage a lot of these partnerships because the league just goes and makes the partnership direct, and the team owners are all bought in. I think one of the tensions in the LCS, you're making a face. Am I wrong about this?
No.
Okay.
Keep going.
I think one of the tensions in the LCS has been that Riot wants to go do a partnership on behalf of all the teams in the league, and then all the teams in the league, it's like herding cats. They all have their own thing that they want to do. You know, like Riot cannot force all 10 of them into a jersey partnership. And so some of them want to do their jerseys this way, some of them want to do it this way.
I mean, this is just to sell them on the same platform, though, too. You
Yeah.
know?
But I mean,
Like-
when you said Fanatics, right? That's where you can buy all these things.
Yes. I mean, I don't expect them to do that, but like I brought it up because yes, it's a partnership that the league does, but just like a central location to see it all. Like where is
you're
that?
saying like
you know?
allesports.com or lcs.com/shop or something. Yeah.
Yes. Where's my shop? And that's LCS gear. Like where can I get all team jerseys? Like why isn't that advertised? Why is that not easy to find?
Yeah.
I mean, like again, this is a very baseline one where Riot can help out. Now, team-wise, I'm with you. I think that over time, a lot of teams like they looked at what TSM was doing and was like, okay, guys, we need to all make our own fuck it Bay Life docuseries, you know, and this will save everything. And the only things that people remember from that era are like the 100 Thieves opening episodes with the Nade Shot vlog, the fuck it Bay Life, and then the TL boom, like breaking point, you know? And everyone else just put all this time into it, and there aren't still like super memorable things from it, unless you are a diehard fan of that team, and that's fine. Like I think again, COG Blood Days is another one. Okay, that's also fair. Like that was a partner thing. Anyway, I can't tell you. Like I can always give you like a couple examples of like memorable team content. I think that's fine. My thing is, I think that teams overall just like failed to monetize. Like 100 Thieves found more money elsewhere. You know,
I mean, they failed to monetize because they couldn't build. Like, a lot of them didn't build fandom.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing, but also I feel like there are creative paths where you can monetize, and like I will give props to 100 Thieves. They got creative outside of League, right? They actually built a brand, leveraged it into other things and ventures where at least then you have a portfolio of things that like can go fold into your company. I feel like a lot of these teams put a lot, like I gave them a lot of shit for how much they spent on their training facilities, but hey, at least that's real estate in LA that's always going to go up, you know? I feel like that's like the biggest asset they have. And I can't tell you the incomes they get outside of that, like outside of the like extreme top tier ones. Like it's all in partnerships and sponsorships, and that's not sustainable.
Yeah,
Like, there has to be more ways to monetize like fans, and I think Riot has really failed at helping these teams also monetize fans. So like I feel like it goes both ways. I know that like for a fact, Riot, a lot of things that Riot were saying or like promising the teams was all packed into Ren. And so when Ren died, a lot of the hopes of, you know, having a portal where you could see all the jerseys, like that died too. And a lot of things that should have been done years ago, that can was kicked down the road and all packaged into Ren, which they then canceled. And like that's why like so many times I was saying like if I was an owner, I'd be pissed about that because so many promises to my understanding that Riot made were all packaged into Ren.
Yeah.
Ren would be the Riot Esports Network.
Yeah.
They were going to build like their
and
own.
for those who have not seen earlier episodes of this was there was a report, I think, on Wired or Bloomberg, I think, about how Riot was building this big, massive portal for people that basically to compete with Twitch and YouTube, and it was going to be like a one-stop shop for all these esports stuff, and it got canceled when they did the layoffs earlier this year. I personally, I feel like it's the most Riot thing in the world to be like, hey, we're starting a...
We're not solving this. We're going to kick it down the road. Then we're
No.
cancel
I was
it.
going to say
And then you're still fucked.
they're like, hey, we're thinking about getting into the automotive business, and one thing that we really need to figure out, we could just go and get tires from all these tire companies, but what if we re-envisioned what the tire was? In fact, what if we re-envisioned and reinvented the wheel itself? And that's just like such, I don't know, it's so frustrating as somebody who cares about the space to see how frequently Riot can't just be like, yeah, let's go do a partnership with these guys that are already doing this thing. They're like, no, let's spend 7 years and $100 million building something that will never come to fruition. To Become One in the chat, by the way, pointed out that Riot did do a jersey collection, I think for like a year. The quality was pretty not great. I feel like it was like 2020 or something like that.
They did T-shirts.
Yeah.
They made T-shirts for all the teams. That's not like. I just want a place where I can go see every team's jersey. It's so
I know. I think it was
like,
jerseys. I think because I think they partnered with Fanatics actually. So they did. I think they did have a jersey partnership. It wasn't just T-shirt stuff, but
right.
yeah, it was many years ago. I forget.
Shit.
There was a lot of conversation about the quality of it not being great.
So one thing I actually want to give credit for too is I do want to give Riot credit with this. I know that behind the scenes for Tier 2, because Tier 2 is like, less money, somewhat hurting, and you can vouch for this too as well, Travis. But pretty much what they gave all the teams was a giant list of potential partners, like dream partners, or big people or big fish that they wanted to come into space, and some of that's actually like promising behind the scenes. Like some of that might work out. So that's a good example of Riot being like, hey, what are some fish that we can go get in the pond? And then helping teams go chase those fish for partners. And that is something that like might actually lead to some fruit as well for some of these teams. So I do want to say like that is at least one positive example I've heard of lately where like very high level partnerships wise, Riot has tried to help. But again, I don't see enough like hand to hand stuff that like they're able to do to enable teams or just open up more revenue streams,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, caller, for reaching out and calling in. Anything that you want to add to the conversation here?
Yeah. All I was gonna say is with this topic, I don't want to excuse like Riot's failings and all this, because they have like in the past had issues there and still do. But I think that as they're innovating and doing more, I think the teams need to keep up with that.
Yeah.
But,
I agree.
that's it.
Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. Shout out to my wife for kind of putting up with me rambling about League when she doesn't play. And all that. And then shout out to you, Travis. Thank you for putting on one of my favorite League content pieces. I listen every week, either in the podcast drive-in or when I can tune in. And you've also put me onto Brando Sando, almost done with Mistborn, so pretty happy for that.
Nice.
And, happy birthday.
I'm glad you've enjoyed. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All
We'll
right.
catch you next
Thank
time.
you. Yep.
All right. Off to the next caller.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We got on the sub front George Zulu for 49 months. It's the afternoon. Thank you for the prime. And Opt GG. Thank you for the tier 1. Folks, I do want to thank you all. Actually, Jeremy with the $20 super chat says, I love Riot for force installing Vanguard. Hey, thank you for the super chat. I was going to say, as always, if you have a prime over on Twitch, it costs you nothing. I guess it's included in your Amazon subscription. Dropping it on the channel, even if you're listening a couple days later, that stuff is very, very helpful. Twitch does a pretty good job of hiding that now. They've gotten better and better at it because clearly they don't want people spending their primes. And I think pretty soon primes are going to get massively nerfed for me within the next month because of something they announced. So if you have one, maybe send it now because it's going to be worth a lot less in about a month, possibly before the month is through. All right, we got Zach is here. Zach, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Franklin, Tennessee.
Franklin, Tennessee?
Franklin, Tennessee.
And what do you want to talk about on the show?
My take is that Dig will be our third seed replacing FlyQuest if FlyQuest isn't able to address some of the problems that popped up at MSI and Summer Split.
Our third seed replacing FlyQuest. So what would be your top three then, just to confirm?
Yeah, so my top three, I think, definitely Team Liquid. They had pretty good form at MSI. They won Spring. I think that C9 is like the obvious one. Obviously crumbled kind of in Spring Split, but I'm really, even though I don't fully believe that Thanatos fixes everything, I think that it's still pretty comfortable to say that they'll make top three. And I think FlyQuest has definitely looked pretty bad going into the summer.
Gotcha. And for those Bustlin Funkus in the chat, says their current lineup going into summers is supposed to be a Licorice, XU, Dove, Sven, and Isles. So this is kind of the updated roster. We've not really talked too much about it. We had Sven on, and then this report came out that he was going to come in. I don't know if they've officially announced it yet. In fact, what is the... Hang on, I want to see what the LCS, the
there
global
might be,
database...
That might not. I've still heard rumblings that that's likely Diggs' roster, but it also could not be Diggs' roster. So they could not be done too.
Really? Okay. You think?
I mean, I
things
think a
might
lot of
change.
people see Jensen getting allegedly replaced at FlyQuest, and also think about, wow, what if Jensen went to Dignitas? You know?
Yeah. So Licorice is in
again.
the database for them,
Yeah.
but he is not. But Sven is not yet. So
Okay.
that has not that contract seemingly hasn't been signed, or at least handed in to Riot, which is kind of weird. You would think it would be by now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's the rumor.
Okay. So
what issues with FlyQuest like do you have? I know that like you watch NACL and Quad. Like what else do you think they need to fix, and why? Like what is your diagnosis of Quad coming in?
I think that, firstly, the problems with FlyQuest, I think, are, generally speaking, they don't have, like, their carry roles, currently, Jensen and Masu, don't have, like, nearly enough firepower. Now, that's not to say that they're bad, but I think that they both lack a little bit of firepower, which is why I think that the quad change is actually good. I also think that, in general, there seems to be a lot of, like, lack of cohesion on that roster. Like, sometimes it just seems like certain players are just not on the same page at all. I think that watching an ACL quad replacing Jensen will be a very good move, but and I do think that could fix a lot of like the problems that I have with FlyQuest, which is why I would not have them in that top three. But I think that bringing up quad to LCS could pose a whole different set of problems. You know, like you're bringing a different like a player that I'm not sure how comfortable they are speaking English.
Cubby, there's probably some people. Sorry to cut you off, caller. I was just realizing there's probably some people who are watching that are unfamiliar with this quad news. Do you want to give everybody the lowdown?
Yeah, so there's been some news that Jensen will be being replaced by Quad, which is FlyQuest Academy, well, technically Challengers mid laner, and he is looking really promising. People on NACL, they always like to talk about how he has the highest CS differential at 15 out of any region or whatever. What's the proper thing?
Yeah,
Cubby?
that was my tweet.
Yeah.
Everyone thought I was comparing NACL to LPL and LCK, man. It was crazy. No, there's actually kind of a fun fact. Out of all mids in any tournament going on in spring, Quad had the highest CS at D at 15. So like he was just owning the league. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he was stomping noobs basically in NACL, and to put it nicely, like it was basically like how long could you survive versus Quad? And if you could survive long enough, maybe you could have a chance of winning. But generally, that was not the case. So I think Quad replacing Jensen will be good, but could pose a lot of problems. On the side of Dig, though, I think that a lot of it hinges on Sven specifically. I think that Licorice and replacing Rich is kind of like a lateral move, you know, like it's not going to be that big of a difference. But I do think that Sven especially will provide a lot of guidance. And I think that Dig's roster really struggled with like making the right decision in the clutch moment. And I think that Sven will be really good at having like a strong voice. I mean, he's been on on Hotline League, and I think he has in general a really strong voice in game as well. And I think that will really help provide direction. And also, I think him and Licorice have a lot of firepower that right now a lot of the roles are pretty weak generally. I would say like a lot of people had difficulty making their all-pro ballots last split. And I think that's because a lot of the roles were generally around the same power level. And I think that Sven and Licorice are, Licorice was first team All-Pro last time he was in LCS. So I think that if he just continues at a similar or equivalent-ish level of play, that both of them will be easily top 3 All-Pro and provide that firepower.
I mean, I think that's something, since a lot of this comes down to Dig versus Fly, I do think that what kind of form Licorice is in will actually have a pretty big impact on where Dig sits in the standings. Same with Sven. I just know that Sven's been a lot more public about going to Korea boot camps and streaming his games, whereas Licorice hasn't. So I actually have more of an idea of like where Sven might fall on the totem pole, whereas Licorice, if he shows up the way he did last year, then yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of the best top laners in the league. But we've also seen Licorice be average in the league, right? So I think that a lot of this comes down to this. I do want to speak on the quad change because I actually think that the quad change is just a straight up upgrade for FlyQuest. I know a lot of Jensen fans will not like this or be surprised, but I think the style that Jensen played did not fit FlyQuest that well, and I don't think Jensen was playing well this split. Like Jensen, for me, I think his champ pool was an issue. That happened natively and internationally. There were some games where I think his TPs were super troll. There are some TPs where him and Blippo are able to play to and through each other on side lanes, which I think FlyQuest did uniquely well and actually deserves a lot of credit for. There were others where he TPs and it like nukes the entire tempo for the map. Like I'm thinking of one of the PSG games, like he TP'd with Talia and then burned ult and then walked bot and they just like lost a straight up 5v4 because like his TP and ult were troll and they already lost the play. This is obviously a nitpick example, but I don't think Jensen was a stable piece. That doesn't mean that he was a great player. Quad, I actually think Quad is a really talented individual player. And this is someone that he came over from Korea. I know from talking with FlyQuest, the narrative around him was that he actually had stage fright because he's played like over 80 LCK games, I believe, under the synonym Solka as well as Quad. So for longtime LCK fans, this is the player's Solka. I got lucky enough in my prep for playoffs. I actually got to sit in on FlyQuest's Challenger scrims. Quad's English is good, and Quad was able to actually communicate a lot of like mid-game rotations, as well as like, hey, what to do, what to target, like look at me, or like I'm taking this side, you take this side. It was a team effort between him, Surdy, and Shime. But Quad was able to be a positive force in comms because this is a player that has a lot of experience and like is again, I think talented in his own right. I think the big thing for him, this split of FlyQuest Challengers, was, hey, we have to make sure that Quad's comfortable and like going in. I will say that Quad, he owned the first half of the split. The only hit, and no one said this, so I know no one actually watched Challengers League, though I tried to argue this with me. He was not as good in the back half of the split as he was at the start of the split. Like, he was owning the league in the start of the split.
Yeah.
Back half of the split, he was good, but there were some plays where it's like, oh man, like, he's really trying to be a playmaker, and some weren't connecting. Whereas at the start of the split, it was like, wow, this guy is literally just walking over everyone. So I think that like my one concern for Quad is maybe if he gets like over his skates a bit, but then I think of like him playing with Inspired and who Inspired thinks is like the best player in the league, and he thinks that's JoJo. I think if Inspired thinks that, like this could be his JoJo/humanoid, I think Quad fits that style a lot better. So I actually like want to give FlyQuest credit. They made an internal promotion. I think the Quad, he was one of, if not the best players in Challengers League, and I think that he was deserving of a spot. The fact that they're giving the mid spot to their own mid laner in Quad, I think says a lot about him and what FlyQuest believes.
You want to give them credit, Cubby?
Yeah, I do.
You want to give them credit even though Jensen is out?
The guy that's gone to every Worlds. I know, it's crazy, but
I don't know. I kind of hate it. It's
okay.
I mean, we'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but like I think that it is very unfortunate that Jensen, who is, I think, pretty consistently one of the better players in the league, is getting the boot out of the team. And I don't have any like extra knowledge beyond what people know, but it does feel as though it's because of the like, oh, the guys just can't get along, or they don't see the game the right way or together or something like that. And I feel like this is a little lazy. Like I think that teams frequently do this thing where they're confronted with a challenge and they're just like, fuck it, roster change. Fuck it, roster change. Let's just roster change. And this is even setting aside like my frustration around the boomerang stuff. Like it is just like the teams do not usually figure out how to fix these things. They just kind of roster change. And there have been repeated times where teams have kept players that folks were skeptical on, and they figured it out and things got better. So I don't know. I would have liked to have seen the staff and the coaching folks and everybody like buckle down on getting this team to function together rather than just sort of like spinning the roster change thing. I'm skeptical that this will be the solution.
If the solutions don't work and top jungle doesn't keep on working out, I also think FlyQuest is uniquely in a spot where they can actually promote Surdy and Shaden if they want, or have them sub in for games. You could even take this further if you want to. As FlyQuest, the things like really fucking hit the fan.
I like that. I'm like no, the solution really isn't just keep roster changing. And Cubby, your answer is like, yeah, we can even roster change even more.
The core play together. You know, they're very good. It's something that's doable. I think Surdy should be an LCS player. I know that, Vox is a challenger Camille player. Like, if you queue up, I'm sure Surdy is one of the players that you want to play against because you're actually get your ass kicked and learn. So, yeah, FlyQuest could take this further if they really wanted to.
What do you think of Verbal Horse in the Twitch chat is saying with best of 3 the split, they could have easily had them split games? It is interesting to me that was not even a consideration, or at least that's not what's been put out there yet, if that is the case, because isn't that a value of best of 3s? Shouldn't the best of 3 crowd want something like this? I don't know.
It's an option, but the teams play on the same day, so they'd have to kind of screw the NACL schedule.
Oh,
do this.
That's pretty lame, actually. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
They'd also have to be in LA as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but in this situation, you would think Jensen would be.
Jensen would be, but Surdy is not, Shaden is not, so I guess it's not an option if they don't have him in house. That kind of sucks. I actually didn't think about that. This split.
Wow, it's almost as if that's a big bummer.
Yeah, it is. It's almost
not
like
having teams
there's
in
an advantage to
LA
keeping
situation. But Travis, they don't have money.
More players,
Okay. So, let's get back into the dig side of the equation, though, because we're talking about FlyQuest. One, much like Cubby, I have, even during the course of this call, gotten messages suggesting that we do not all have the full Dignitas roster picture yet. That there are likely more changes that are coming to be announced.
See, I don't get live leaks. It must be a birthday privilege.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's very funny whenever stuff like this happens, whenever I'm doing the show.
I heard there were more things up in the air potentially, but I can't confirm anything before the outlets do. And the outlets talk to the teams anyway, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there might be some additional stuff happening there. I don't know if we'll see Spica come in or what will happen, but if you're dig, maybe you are taking this break, because they also, I think they swapped coaching staff, right?
They did.
Yeah.
Yes. Treats is actually in as an assistant, which I think Treats is a good player, but I'm excited to see what he can do as a coach. I think he has a really good mind and personality for it. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, he's not on the database, so which I'm not saying
the report.
It's just interesting they don't have him there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're making some changes all over the place with that. I don't know if this is their attempt at. I wonder how close they are to the non-induced immortals rule situation. But regardless, it seems like they could be making some pretty big changes. I will remain very skeptical until proven differently. I think Dignitas is just not great at cultivating good talent, or rather, cultivating good performance. Like, we were talking in the last call about how players, when they go back to other regions, oftentimes perform better than they do in the North American environment. And I think you see that with teams like Dignitas and with Immortals, where players that are on these organizations underperform their career highs, and they often have career lows. And then after they leave these organizations, they suddenly get a lot better. So I think that there's a very good chance that the Dignitas environment and that organization is incapable of making an environment in which a team can truly be top 3. Now, maybe they're making enough systemic changes with the coaching staff. Maybe they're making enough changes with the roster that they can bring in something that will be really exciting for summer. But I want to point out that would be like a first for this organization, and that there is a whole lot of precedence that they are unable to do something like that. And so that is one of the major reasons why, even if given the right pieces, I would not be surprised if they are not able to bring them together, because they have been historically incapable of doing that.
Honestly, if that's your take, I think that Dig fans should be the happiest about bringing Sven in, because regardless of play,
Wait,
Sven will not
fans?
deal with that bullshit.
Cubby?
Yeah, Dig fans.
Which Dig fans?
Okay, well, thank you, Travis. But for the rare ones out there, you should be excited about getting Sven in, because if that's your culture, Sven's not going to stand for that shit. So I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like this idea, and I would love to be proven wrong, because it would mean that this organization has changed what they have been for their entire reintroduction to the league. But I just don't. I don't know. We haven't seen evidence that they can actually put something together that's compelling. So this would be a first, and I legitimately feel as though players underperform their potential in that org when they have those 3 digits in front of their name. So we'll have to see if that can change this time. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a believer, Zach. Cubby, are you a believer? Is Dignitas going to get top 3?
No, I'm not. But I think that they're going to be more competitive this split than they were last split. So
yeah, very good. Thanks so much, Zach, for the call. Sorry we disagree with you. Anything that you want to shout out here at the end?
Shout out NACL. It's really goated. Shout out my Twitter, Voxtrick. I stream. I do stuff like that. I play League as well. I play amateur, and yeah, thanks for having me on. Shout out to you, Travis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
thanks, Zach.
You do.
All right. We've got 2 more callers to go this evening. I've been really enjoying our conversations. It's kind of nice whenever we can just dive in on a lot of different stuff. So
It is.
Yeah.
Hopefully we got a little bit of a variance going. I might pull 1 or 2 more, Travis. We may not be done, but
yeah,
we'll see where we're at.
I think we still have one for we've been taking longer on some of these calls, so
Yeah.
I think maybe one more is cool.
Yeah.
But
All right, here we
it's been
go.
Good. Thank you to PN over on YouTube for gifting 5 memberships, saying happy birthday, Travis. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And 504 Caesar for gifting 1999. That's the year I was born. So pretty cool that you knew that, 504 Caesar. Thank you for the birthday wishes. That is very, very cool of you. And then over on Twitch, we have, let's see, Maddie Socials, Reconsider, Pete Monster, Maestro's Evil Twin, Jay Senny, D Santana, Snake ED2, Sonorism, Cruella's, Badger Yar, Cincy Fear, and Devious One gifted us up. Thank you, everybody, for all of that. Yeah, 1999, folks. I just turned 25. What are you talking about? All right, we got the next caller here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, hello. My name is Blade, calling from Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that Riot Games needs to bring back Rift Rivals. I think this MSI was sick, but I think it was sick, yeah, because of like the setup and the schedule and everything, but also because the E versus NA matchup with TL Fnatic was lit. I think some of the Korea-China matchups were sick, and because the only people in the world that I feel like care about like West versus East really and expect anything out of it are G2 fans. So that's my take.
Cody, we kind of had a similar conversation about this a couple weeks ago, right?
I mean, it was about it got into
it was about the Riot third tournament, right? And basically the idea was we should do like a Eastern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere tournament.
Yes, it was the answer to one of the calls. So it's like actually, you know.
Well, then you and I'm going to stand by what I said. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cubby, it's on you to handle this now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
You
I mean,
you pulled the take. We talked
true.
about it, and now you get to deal with the consequences.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down for like I thought that the third international tournament it would be if you had multiple ones running at the same time and were able to like actually condense it a little bit. I thought that'd be like the best solution to how to do the third international tournament. Like, I think that at least MSI and Worlds has like a little bit of a different format. I think that you lose some prestige if you're inviting like just the same teams 3 times instead of just 2. I know MSI is a little bit of a narrower net compared to Worlds, but with that being in mind, like what if instead of narrowing up the teams, you just narrow up the regions and the tournaments, and you have 2 tournaments where you can cast a wider net and include more teams? It's just regionalized. I feel like that would be fun. And if they ran it at non-overlap times, you could have a banger week or 2 of League of Legends, and you would technically get 4 international tournaments then, because these 2 would run at the same time. What
Also,
does that happen?
if I may, I don't know. So full disclosure, I didn't see the last take. I don't know what y'all talked about already or not. But I know like if G2 went to the finals this MSI, at least I heard that they were going to get the 4th slot for Worlds or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people were like not happy about that, myself included, like that EU would, because one team region and all. So I think this would be like a good way to solve that too. This is they put stakes on the tournament and stuff like that. If that was already talked about, my bad, but
Yeah.
We hadn't talked about the stakes of this. Here, let me turn just because we have. I mean, I agree with everything you said, Cubby. It was mostly, I think, what our conversation was about. A couple weeks ago. Let me twist this into the context of MSI a little bit, which is after MSI, I would say that the results of this tournament are a great reason to reinforce the idea that like a third international event should not just have all of the regions playing together, because consistently, even though G2 is I will say obviously the best team in the West, we are no longer able to say that we're the best region in the West. Like, they don't have what it takes to be competitive with the top Korean and Chinese teams, and they have in the past, but it's been a while. And we're going to have to wait and see if they can do that again. But
it was close to the most years,
Yeah, sure. But, like,
yeah,
I don't know if I need another a third tournament where I see G2 and the best team from North America fail to take the matches off of, the Gen Gs and the T1s of the world. So I think that the way that I would take this call a little bit, which is, to harken back to our conversation previously where we thought a third international tournament, the rumored Riot third international tournament that's supposed to be introduced into the ecosystem next year, I think this tournament is evidence that having 3 events where the best teams from North America and Europe fight it out between the two between each other and then ultimately lose to LPL or LCK is not what we need. We get a chance to, like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have chances to take games off these guys or that we shouldn't have the Miracle run opportunities like Team Liquid making the finals, Fnatic making the finals, all these things that have happened in the past. But I think that like 2 tournaments a year is enough of opportunity for something like that to happen. I think really emphasizing the Western Eastern rivalries in that first tournament is good. And if you are building this meaningfully into the global schedule in the way that they did with Valorant, and you can make this like structured in a way that wasn't just like Rift Rivals randomly slammed in the middle of the summer split, I think that this could be a really great tournament. Maybe one of the more, I think it could be the second best international event of the year, meaning that it could be more enjoyable to consume than MSI.
It could be more enjoyable to consume than Worlds because MSI only has double elimination, and Riot still can't put double elimination in their best
different
events,
conversation
so
entirely. But I get your point. Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. I think that if we're talking about like building up brands too, and that being an issue for the teams, then I think it's better to have 2 tournaments that cast a wider net. That like will get you a regionalized audience. And if you're a diehard League fan, then from here, then yeah, stay up and watch the other tournament. I mean, I'll be doing that. It'll be fun as hell. But I want to see W them. I want to see it a little bit more localized. And I think that's the way that Riot could have the biggest win with this third international tournament.
Fergus Chung over on YouTube says, Travis doesn't believe in steel sharpens steel. First off, never said that. Secondly, it's been how many fucking years? How sharpened has the steel become over time, you know? Like, I guess if the premise is we need that third international tournament so that we can compete at Worlds, like, I just don't. No, I don't believe that is
also
the way that this is going to work.
Also for stakes, you could have the stakes be like what regions actually get invited to MSI. That could actually be real stakes.
You're saying whoever loses the Rift Rivals doesn't get to go to MSI? That's crazy.
No, well, if we cast a wider net with like more localized, regionalized regions, like I don't know, the top 4 regions get in. You know, you could actually also, I want to see like some of the EMEA teams be included in this. By the way, they'd be quite good and fun to have go up against LCS with LEC plus like the EU Masters teams plus LLA plus CBLOL like for the Western region. And yeah, I mean if like an EMEA team does good enough, then yeah, have someone from EU Masters go to MSI. I'm all for that if they earn it.
Man, I have consistently found myself in a situation where the audience Hotline League audience gets mad at me about something, which is, I don't know what's happening more recently than it has in the past, but last week it was that, dude, the blowback from the Faker.
Oh, the Hall of Legends?
Dude, the Faker Hall of Legends shit. People
Holy
were
shit.
really unhappy with me about that. People were really unhappy with that. And I feel like this is a similar situation where I see so many people in the chat being like, no. We steel sharpens shit. What does it say? Like, lame take. This is from Defy Apocalypse on YouTube. Lame take. We need NA and EU to keep playing on stage games and scrimming against Asian teams to get better. They won't get better playing each other. Like, one, I disagree that they won't necessarily get better playing each other. And 2, I don't think that one extra event in the spring is going to make the difference if that's what is the issue. You know, like I just don't.
It'll help all the teams, honestly. Like, you'll all get to G2's level, and then when you go, you'll be at their level, and it won't be as big of a gap going against the Eastern teams when you get the MSI. You know, you just have to continue with that. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's fine.
I don't know. I just yeah, but no, I think. Yeah, that is the way that I would take this take, because obviously we've agreed in the past that Rift Rivals, like an Eastern, especially if you did something that was like not just NAU, but something that had like a lot of the Western regions and a lot of the broader Eastern regions all coming together, I think that could be really cool.
Yeah.
And I think we had that conversation before MSI or right at the start of it. And yeah, I would just say that this event, in my mind, is more validation that we don't need a third event that feels like this. Having something very different that focuses on the different regions, I think, is very, very good. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I can butt in one more time about the whole steel sharpen steel thing.
Sure.
You know how many like teams go to these international tournaments from NA and just mental boom, like just absolutely come back just kind of broken, or
we usually get one. Yeah, it's funny because at Worlds it was TL last year, and then at MSI it was FlyQuest this year. So
yeah, like all the players talk about it, right? Like you just get shit stomped in scrims. Like you're not really, you like start doubting yourself on like, you know, can we even win? Like what comp wins? Then you just start like losing your identity a little bit. So I think, you know, NA versus EU, obviously the gap's a lot closer. It's a way to like actually practice and like, you know, go up against teams that are like a new look, a new vibe, potentially better, potentially worse. But I don't know. I just feel like that's how you sharpen your steel, by like playing someone, you know, slightly better, but not just miles better.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because I remember like back in the StarCraft days, there was a lot of conversation about the idea that like you could become a lot better if you had like a rival growing up. Like if you had like 100%. A brother, like a lot of times the people who get really good at video games are people who had like a brother or a sister that they are like playing that game against with throughout their whole life, trying to get better and better and better. And it's not necessarily about like, oh, I went to this event and just got shit my teeth kicked in or shit on. Like, instead, it is having somebody who is like a somewhat equal talent helping you get better and better. And so I think if you have these top teams from both these regions playing against each other, it is not insignificant. It is perhaps better for them than, like, I think TL might get better scrimming G2 than they do Gen G. TL might be able to speak to that. I'm not saying I'm completely correct, but I think it's probably true.
I mean, I think like there's like a reality to both. I think it's speaking like teams getting boomed when they go get their shit pushed in. Like, I mean, welcome to the fucking show. That's what I have to say, Like, if you're going up against the best teams in the world and you get clapped like that, like, yes, that is the reality of how far behind you are. And you're going to have to find ways to catch up to that.
Sure, but we don't need that 3 times a year.
Well, we as fans don't. I think the reality of like teams having that behind the scenes is still good. I'd rather have that very early in the year. Like, hey, this is how far we have to go.
Well, maybe they should get their teeth kicked in at against Europe instead of against Korea, right?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I think that, like, for me, I'd rather have exposure to the best teams and have that kind of practice. So yeah, I think I don't know. I'd rather play against better competition. I don't think that you will learn more things playing against closer competition, but also if that's what you're battling, then you're never going to beat the top teams. So
sure.
I have mixed feelings on that, but I do think that, again, more localized, regionalized 2 tournaments running it like similarly or at the same time is better than having a 3rd international.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much for the caller. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Yeah. A few shout outs real quick. One, Travis, happy fucking birthday, man.
Thank you.
Phil's birthday. Cubby, respect for Phil and Mark's shoes, bro. You've killed it like really seamlessly. Those were big old shoes and you've done great.
Yeah, he's pretty tall. Thanks.
And lastly, to the future champions of the NHL and NBA, the Dallas Stars and Dallas Mavericks. That's all.
Ooh.
Sports.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks for the call.
It is good to be a Dallas fan right now.
100.
All right. We've got 2 more callers to go. Thank you to Natty MD, ZTB 123654, Killer of Heroes, D9, and Yeshua. You know what's crazy is Kobe's supposed to be back today, and I've not heard him all day. I keep expecting him to walk in the door. I don't know when he's supposed to show up, but I've heard he's supposed to be back today, and he just is not coming back. So don't know what's going on.
I heard he wants shelter, Travis. He might be looking for.
What? All right, we got a caller here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm DJ Ninja. I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
DJ Ninja?
DJ 8 Ninja.
DJ. Oh, yes. Hello. Welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so my take is that I think Team Liquid really improved over MSI. They're going to come back to NA. They're going to get first place in summer and win the championship. And I think they're going to have the potential to beat a Asian team in a best of 3, potentially a best of 5.
Let's go.
This is our success story. They
have it's extremely hopium. It's extremely hopium.
And do you say strictly LPL or do you say LPL LCK?
No, Asia, so Eastern LPL or LCK.
Okay, so
all right. Why do we have more faith in TL? Like, what do you think they learned? Like, what was valuable for them about this trip, or what you like seeing from them on this trip?
So the big thing that I really like seeing from them was mainly in that T1 series. I'm ignoring the top esports series that didn't happen. I think because they really bounced back after that series. They went 3-1 versus Fnatic, but during that T1 series, the big thing that I felt that I feel like I don't see from a lot of NA teams when they play Eastern teams at Worlds is they had confidence. They looked like they were consistently fighting and trying to get back when they were behind, and they had good advantages for a while in both the first games they lost. I'm ignoring the last game that happened. Didn't happen. But I think they look strong, and I think it gives them something to build on. They clearly didn't mental boom after that first loss, and I think that means they have the confidence to come back stronger next time.
I really liked this Team Liquid. We were just talking about the Team Liquid at Worlds last year that did mental boom, and I think that it's pretty cool that we saw these guys show up and be competitive, and I mean, as competitive as you could be, I guess, as a North American team these days. And really show up. And it reminds me a lot actually of the NRG story, right? Where they did have a really rough showing at, am I correct? Wait, maybe I'm blurring this all together. No, whatever. The NRG story of where you had this team that was kind of floppy. A lot of people thought of them as underdogs, and then they managed to get things together and put on a pretty good show. Now, unfortunately, the NRG story did not end well, but that was involving a roster change that I think unfortunately compromised their capacity for winning the way that they had before. And so I am excited to see what happens when these guys come back. Now, I think what's interesting is they're going to be coming back to a very different situation, because normally these teams that go to MSI, they come back, they underperform. This year, they're going to be moving into a different format. We've got this strange single round robin best of 3 thing, I believe is what we've got. So it's going to be kind of weird. And I don't know what that's going to mean. So I think they'll be good. I'm not sure if that means that they're going to be good enough to beat an Asian team. I do think we'll see them at Worlds. I wonder if we're going to see them slump. And I do wonder if like either C9 or FlyQuest are going to get their shit together and be the competitive organizations that they could be in response, and potentially push Team Liquid down. So,
yeah. I mean, to be fair to FlyQuest, they did have it together until MSI, right? Or until honestly finals week, right? This is the team that was favored to win the final going in. Everyone thought that FlyQuest would win. So C9 were the favorites to win the region, and then they fell apart. So yeah, I mean, I hope that they can be more competitive and live up to some of the high expectations that we still have for those two rosters. I think the biggest thing for me with this TL trip is they were still undeniably them in their style, and they showed that it was good enough to take games off of big teams. It wasn't good enough to win series against the best teams, and it was... I think the Fnatic series, honestly, I thought Fnatic played quite poor. I don't want to take too much away from TL, because I do... Like, my analysis of that series was, I didn't see it in the tape, like how TL would win, but I was like, God, neither bot lane was able to play in the series like we've seen so far against good teams. Like, Noah was getting absolutely clapped. Yawn got clapped by Jackie Love. So it's like, whichever bot lane can actually play the game at a higher level is the one that I think is going to win. I was like, all right, TL 3-2. TL ended up 3-1-ing, and I think it's because their bot lane played much better than Fnatic's. But, yeah, I still think that, like, some of these players have to grow. I thought didn't have quite as good of a tournament as he was having in North America. I don't know if the lane swap meta, like, kind of threw him a curveball that he couldn't handle as well. But I thought that was, like, the one big difference I saw in TL that, like, kind of concerned me. Besides that, I think APA and Yawn keep on improving as individuals. They need to, and I think they are. I'm hopeful that TL can be stronger this split because of that and more factors of the team just coming together.
Yeah, I'd say probably, I think in my eyes, Yawn and APA were probably their best performers at the tournament, especially in that Fnatic series. Yawn absolutely looked like he stepped up.
Yeah, Noah was really troll. Yawn capitalized on it, but I got really far behind on my VOD reviews. I still have to take a second look at that one, but my gut feeling is I'm going to be malding about Noah more than I will be praising Yawn. But yeah. I think that Yawn did scale a lot this split, and if you're a TL fan, that's probably the thing I'd be most excited for about Summer, to see if he can like really hold that high level. Also, Yawn Samira was fun. His Samira has always been very, very good. So the fact he had to bust it out and take a game with it was good for him. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what ends up happening. I am a little bit more skeptical that they will like power up as much as you think they will, but I do agree that it was really exciting to see them at MSI. I am happy with the performance they put in, especially with newer players on their roster, especially with relatively a recent roster in terms of construction. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. I really like the idea that we had this call that was able to kind of celebrate them, because obviously they got eliminated a bit ago, but we hadn't had a show since then. So I appreciate the positivity. Thank you very much for calling in. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Shout out my girlfriend. It's her birthday next week. Actually, a week from now exactly. And happy birthday to you, Travis.
Thank you. May birthdays are the best. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
All right. We've got one more caller to go. Cubby is headed off.
Yeah, let's do it. See, we almost made it to full time here, Travis.
True. Yeshua, thank you for the 35 months. Moonfish, thank you for 40 months. Man, it's so many of you are so generous with how long you've been subs, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we got our final caller here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Travis. Carson calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis, Minnesota. You've been on before, right?
I've been around, one of your frequent YouTube watchers since you switched over, but I've not been on now.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about?
I had a thought, something I think about quite a bit actually, is just like viewership in the LCS, seemingly what could make it more interesting and kind of the aging viewership. And just thinking my main take tonight would be that the LCS needs a docuseries that's kind of all-encompassing with the league, like Netflix's Full Swing, or as Cubby mentioned, Drive to Survive.
Oh boy, the Drive to Survive call. I guess it's probably been about 6 months since we've had this one, so I guess we can
That's
go
what I
through
figured,
it again.
Travis. Yeah.
It's funny. No, I look. I like doing the shows where we do the open lines. It is funny how frequently this stuff comes up. Yeah.
Man.
What? Wait. Oh, wait. This reminds me of the John Robinson tweet. He made this like salty tweet. I like John Robinson a lot, and I'm sad that he's not really attached to the league much anymore. But he made this salty tweet, which I hated, which was like, "We wanted Drive to Survive, instead we got players."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I really liked players. I thought it was good. I thought it was in some ways a more accurate depiction of the scene than what we'd seen in a lot of documentaries in the past, which is ironic given that it was scripted and the other documentaries were seemingly not. I don't think that the answer to every problem like this is a Drive to Survive show. I am not convinced that this audience would watch that type of show. I think that a lot of teams have done docuseries. Now, admittedly, the quality of those and the exposure of things in them have gone down over time, but like I don't think it would be a bad thing by any means. If I could press a button and have one for the LCS, I would definitely be into it. But I also am not sure if that's the form of content I would want some big push into the LCS to take.
Okay. So I got a couple ideas of this, and Travis. One, I would almost prefer that this happens, because then every team wouldn't invest in doing their own 10 to 20 minute video a week. And I feel like a lot of resources go into that for enough gain where some teams do it and some don't. So they're deciding whether or not to continue with that style of content. In a way, a show like this, the cameras just run, you just perform, and then they make it for you. That's quite nice in theory. Now, what I'd also ask is, like, with this audience, what if there's a world where we could have a legit LCS Drive to Survive season, or season 2 of Arcane? If there was a world where we had to choose between one or the other, I feel like most people would choose season 2 of Arcane.
Everyone would choose season 2 of Arcane, Cody. What are you talking about?
I like the show. I would not choose it. I think most people would choose Arcane. So it's also like, is this worth the resources, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, if Riot had to spend the money on it. I mean, I think the premise for me has always been that, like, you would try to get Netflix or somebody to pay for something like this. The challenge is that I don't know if the audience is big enough right now in North America to justify it. But yeah, I don't think that, like, Riot could commit the resources to doing something like this.
I
go
will say, off that, Travis, the one thing that I will give to why people want to see something like this is a lot of people were not fans of F1 until Drive to Survive.
Oh, I know. Yes.
I am one of those people.
So we should add the context for this. A lot of people who are listening to this might not know Drive to Survive, really big show that came out, made a ton of people really care about F1, especially in the US, whenever I think a lot of them had not. It's this behind-the-scenes documentary series, very, very popular. I think it's fallen off a little bit in later seasons from what I understand from talking to people. But it did do a really big thing. And so the premise has always been, if LCS had a Drive to Survive, we would I think a lot of people treat it like it worked for F1. Just press the drive to just make Drive to Survive 5-head, and then we'll get all this viewership. And I have always been skeptical that like you can just do that. Cubby, there's one about tennis, right? Or is it golf? Or both?
It's golf, Full Swing.
Okay.
It's made by the same production company, and I actually don't like it that much. I'm very sad about it.
Yeah.
Like pretty much like the best part about Drive to Survive is that they talk with all the team principals. Like the team principals are the one that's like your equivalent to like the GMs here in League, right? They're the ones that spend the most time talking to the camera. It's them and the drivers. So any and all beef that happens between those two parties is covered by Drive to Survive, and it's blown out of proportions to what actually happened in the F1 series after the season's over, which I find dynamite. Whereas Full Swing, it's kind of like, yeah, we're golfers. Guess what? We do play in tournaments that have $10 million purses. Sure, a lot of people don't know this. And we make like $50 million a year off of what we win in sponsorships. So yeah, we have a lot of fucking money. And that's really the basis of Full Swing, is they follow around people with money. And the one episode that everyone liked, they followed around a no-name golfer known as Joel Damon. And everyone loves Joel Damon now because he was just a guy. Like, he drinks beer after his round. And he's not the best golfer in the world, but his best friend's his caddy. And he's very honest about, starting a family, having success, and has struggles with that. And my favorite episode of season 2 was when they followed him and another no-name golfer who hit it big, and it was about how they needed the sports psychologist. And it was actually a very, very, very well-done episode. The rest of the episodes are kind of trash. It's like, yeah, I'm already super successful. Here's what I do in my day-to-day life. Yes, I am a superstar, even though I play golf. Like, that's it. And there's like no heart to it. I need the beef,
I would say I think the importance of it, and maybe if it's even a combination of something like quarterback as well as a Drive to Survive, where you're picking 3 different players to follow around.
Okay. Yeah.
I agree.
Here's what we need. Legitimately, all of us are all speculating on what it's like behind the scenes with FlyQuest. Years ago, the docuseries were very popular in the LCS because you would actually see the crazy drama going on behind the scenes.
Get GM beef.
Then we decided we didn't want to do that anymore because some players were uncomfortable with it. It was hard to sign talent, blah, 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 blah. And so we stopped doing it. Now, that's fine. You can make that decision, but then you can't be bummed when this type of stuff is not like driving significant traffic anymore. Whenever the videos just become, here's a shot of the players in the car on the way to the LCS, here's a montage of the gameplay, here's them talking about how they're struggling and they got to do better, here's them talking about their upcoming match, and then like release the same video again next week.
So that's the nice part about Drive to Survive. They usually follow around one team a week. And the other great part, again, is they get all the beef. Like, they have the cameras running when you have one team principal going to another and be like, hey, just to let you know, we're challenging how you changed the car and like got your technology. We feel like you copied it without paying us for the rights, And then the other like team principal's like, what the fuck? These guys are just mad that we're winning now. It's like, and you get like all the beef. It's great. It's so fantastic watching how small these guys get on like the biggest stage. That's what we need here, like for real.
Yeah. I just wanted to finish quick my one thought. Just if it were to be following 3 players, like let's just say hypothetically, having someone in amateur, someone in collegiate, and someone in the LCS to kind of all encompass the scene could be an interesting angle as well.
I like that. I don't have enough confidence that people would tune in to it if it had amateur and collegiate stuff.
I will say, Travis, the other good part about these shows is that they usually bring in people like from the space to talk and cover it. It's like they have like a journalist in it. They have like Danica Patrick was in this last one of Drive to Survive because like to talk about the driver's perspective. So
She's
it is a good way to get big
person, right?
Yeah, but she was also a professional NASCAR driver and F1 driver.
Oh, okay.
So it is like one way to get professionals that are popular that are no longer participating in the scene to have voices in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I just think it'd be interesting to see an attempt because it seems, and I hope it's not the truth, that the LCS may soon become like the MLB and just kind of age out. And I'm not sure anything's worth a try at this point. I do feel like.
No. I look again. If Netflix came to Riot and said we want to do this, there's no world in which Riot should say no. I think the challenge is producing these things are incredibly expensive, and I don't have enough faith in the ability of it to make that money back. That Riot should go spend, I don't know, $50 million making something like this. I'm sure it's an insane amount of money. So, but I do like the idea. I do like the idea of us getting more exposure to what's actually happening behind the scenes of these teams, because I think somebody said the docuseries got sanitized. I saw that in chat, and like that's a great way of putting it. Is these things all just got super boring because you didn't get to see the moments where Inspired and Whippo are yelling
break
at
some
Jensen
keyboards
behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Let's be toxic.
Yeah. And honestly, like that would be one of the benefits of a show like this, is that, you know, Riot and the teams would probably have to sign, you know, hey, we don't get final say on what comes out. Actually, Riot would probably still say it, but Riot would be more willing to add risk in there than perhaps the teams would. And you would get a lot of things that just get filmed, I think, that the teams would not be thrilled about getting out, but would ultimately probably benefit the scene in terms of fandom. So
I'm with Chris in the chat. Like, let's show players real personalities. I feel like everyone loved pros because you got to see real personalities this split. I think that was one of the big LCS wins this split, is that I feel like a lot of people actually connected more with players because players were more them and things were less sanitized. So I don't give a shit if you break keyboard. Like, if it's a heat of the moment, people will, if the show's done well, you will have people be like, why do they do that? Or also, like, I get that feeling, you know, like, I get, like, why this person is so intense, you know? Like, it's, like, yeah, I don't want to encourage that behavior, but also, like, if that's what it is, then it is what it is. Show it, and, like, we're mature enough to handle it, and if the show's good, they'll do a good enough job of, like, not sanitizing it, but make sure it's good, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. Thanks so much, caller, for the take. Anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Hey, happy birthday. I know
Thank you.
You're near my age here at 21, legally able to drink now, so
dude, it is.
Enjoy your day.
Actually, no.
Honestly,
I've been able to drink
Travis
for a couple years
drinking.
now.
I think he was for the first time drinking because
No,
this
no,
guy loves his fruity drinks. You
I've-
love your fruity drinks, Travis.
I love my
learned
fruity
this about
drinks.
you. Yes, your fruity drinks. You
Fruity
like
drinks,
the
yes.
You had like the, you know, like the beach drinks going,
Like a
like
pina
the
colada.
coconut.
Yeah, I love if it can be
pina
served in
colada.
like a tiki cup. Then
I learned that about you yesterday, and I respect it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, caller, for the well wishes, and we will catch you next time.
Yep. Enjoy your night, guys.
See ya. Awesome. Well, it was a really fun episode. I think we got some great discussions in. Love whenever we can do stuff like this. It is very, very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you got going on this week, Cubby? What do you want to shout out?
Not too much. I got another episode of The Jungle coming out as well. So make sure to tune into that, as be interested to hear their perspective on G2, as that is primarily a EU podcast. And then not too much else. Shout out to you, Travis. I actually, we might have a video or two able to come on in about the new season for LCS once we start to learn more.
Yeah.
And I hope that in, post Monday of your birthday, you're able to open up some packs and maybe enjoy one more delicious pina colada for you. Just to make sure the
I
birthday
don't have a
lasts
pina
little
colada
longer.
tonight, unfortunately, but I will stick around on stream and maybe crack some packs and hang out with people.
Next time I go to a bar, I'm getting one for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. No, it was fun. For those that don't know, Cubby came out last night. I know we talked about it at the beginning of the show, but you were also one of the last people to leave, so I really appreciate it. It seemed like it
was fun.
You did such a good job of meeting people. Actually, I think you'd known some of them, but yeah, it's fun. I don't know the rest of you, everybody watching, but like I love bringing together people for like my birthday or for holiday events, especially people who might not know each other, and then getting a chance to kind of like introduce them all, see them all interact with each other. all this type of stuff. Last night I had some Magic friends and some esports friends that were all hanging out together, and that was really neat. And Mrs. Chim Chim came out with her new roommates, and they just moved out here, and it was fun to have them meet some different people that were at the event. And yeah, it's just great whenever you can do stuff like that. I love bringing folks together, so it's always really good. Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about you, and like that's fun about those, like not only do you bring people together, but like in that case, they're new to LA, so you made sure they knew everyone's names and everyone. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy to get to know everyone because you make sure that everyone knows everyone. So
yeah,
it's fun.
Exactly. And especially it used to be a lot easier because there used to be a lot more like teams throwing parties or players putting together something at their place, and like that type of stuff just doesn't happen as much in the ecosystem. And it kind of makes me sad. I miss whenever that was the case, maybe 5 or so years ago, whenever you could just go to one of these things and meet and hang out with a ton of people. And so whenever I can have something like that again, I think it's really fun. So nothing will ever beat, we didn't know each other at the time, but nothing will ever beat my 30th birthday party. I rented out a place. This was when esports was in a more healthy spot and TGI was in a more healthy spot. And I rented out a whole like bar downtown and invited, I think, like 160 people or something. Just like I invited basically all the team owners, all the Riot Esports people, almost all the players, at least the ones that could drink legally. And we just had, it was so fun. It was really, really cool. And then for those that remember Ateo, in fact, Rachel from Ateo was there last night, but they helped me throw my 30th birthday, and we did like a cutout. It's somewhere in here of me that people could take pictures with. We did all this fun stuff. It was, I love putting together stuff like that for my friends, and it was really fun to do that for the industry back in the day. I was reflecting on the fact that was now half a decade ago when it feels like it was only a couple of years ago. I know time is terrible. All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. We've got some stuff coming in the pipeline I've been working on. It's been slow, but doing that. Weekend after next, I will be at DreamHack Dallas. If people want to come hang out with me there, it's a big esports festival. I'll be playing some Magic, but also doing some of the esportsy things at that. So if you're going to DreamHack Dallas, please come say hi to me. And I think you can use code Travis or maybe Travis Gafford, one of the two, to save money on your ticket at DreamHack. So go check it out. But yeah, thanks everybody. Oh, Papa Smithy's going to DreamHack Dallas. Crazy. Wait, Numi's going to DreamHack Dallas. Wow. Numi won't be able to avoid me any longer. That's very nice.
Boba in Dallas.
She's going to go. Actually, you know what? She'll probably just hide from me on the other side of the convention. So
I think you might be able to find her at a certain booth. You know.
The only time Numi wants to hang out is whenever it's payday. Anyway, thanks everyone. That's the show. I'll catch you all later. Cubby and I'll see you next Monday, 7 o'clock Pacific, as we always record these. Bye.